This is the DBQ video by Kenzie Piesco, Delaney Storm, Alex Leach, and Haley Sims. The DBQ is the first essay of the second portion of the exam. You are given 10 minutes to prepare and plan for the essay, and then 40 minutes to actually write it. The DBQ essay is 33.3% of the essay portion, which is 50% of the whole exam. For this essay, you need to be able to do certain types of things. One is you need to have good reading skills because you need to be able to read each prompt quickly and accurately to decide what you're going to do with each document. You also need to be able to pick up on detail because you don't know what each document information is giving you, so you need to figure out what they're giving you on your own. You also need to be able to find patterns so you can group each document accordingly. You need to be able to analyze people's backgrounds so that the point of view will be easier to do. And you need to be able to find the missing link for the additional document purposes. You can earn up to 9 points. The DBQ rubric can earn up to 9 points, and the first point is the acceptable thesis point. To earn this point, you should use the method buckets and chicken feet. First, the buckets portion of this method is to group all of your documents into 2 or 3 groups and put them into a so-called bucket. The bucket will then be turned into your thesis with multiple clauses, but you can make it easier and make an easier transition by putting it into a chicken foot, which is a beginning clause and 3 separate clauses at the end, which will turn into your body paragraphs. And once this is done, you have your thesis that it has more than 1 clause, making it more complex and easier for you to get the point. The next point on the rubric is the understands basic meaning of the document. This point explains that you should be able to comprehend what the speaker is trying to get across in all of the documents. If you do that in every single one, you earn 2 points. However, if you misinterpret one document, you only receive 1 point. This point system also applies to the next point on the rubric. It says, supports thesis with an appropriate evidence from all or all but one document. This says that you should write down a 2 to 5 word phrase from each document for your evidence, and explains your reasoning and why you grouped it that way. The next point is your point of view point, and you need to be able to analyze it in at least 2 documents. While you do this, you should ask yourself certain types of questions, like why does the speaker feel that way? What is their background? And how does their job pertain to the document? This will help you make an accurate inference of what their point of view is. The last basic core point you can earn is identifies and explains the need for one type of appropriate additional document or source. While you're trying to figure this out, ask yourself this question. Who has the unheard voice? Is it a slave, a woman, a high government official, a child, or clergy? While you ask this, you can find the one person or thing that is not used in all the documents to earn your additional point.
Beyond the basic core is the expanded core. This is points 8 or 9. The basic core only earns you up to 7 points. Using the expanded core means doing one of the things below, but the easiest parts are using a clear, analytical, and comprehensive thesis, which is making as much information go into the smallest thesis possible. Another is to group the documents in more than one way, which is using one document in more than one paragraph or grouping. Another one of the easiest ways is to use point of view in almost all the documents, which is kind of difficult because you only have such a short amount of time. There are many types of prompts that the AP examiners could give you. One example is this. Using the documents, compare and contrast the attitudes of Christianity and Islam towards merchants and trade from the religion's origins until about 1500. Are there indications of change over time in either case or both? The rest of this question is not needed to be looked at because it is part of the rubric. Things to notice about this is that it says compare and contrast, which means taking Christianity and Islam and looking for similarities and differences in their trade and merchants, which is the economic theme. It also says change over time, which is taking information about Christianity's view of merchants and trade at the beginning of its origins until about 1500 and looking for what changed over that time period. The same is done for Islam. It also says beginning of religions to 1500. So that means that you have to use information all the way through that time period and bring information from the documents that cover all of that time, making sure that they relate to the theme of economics. Since this is such a complex question, many relationships are needed to be looked at. First, in tips and organization, I would make a table or chart such as the one above to know what the question is that you need to answer. Make a bucket such as early Islam in 1500 and early Christianity and Christianity in 1500. Then look for the specific relationships such as change over time and compare and contrast. I would group the documents based on what the question is and stay focused on the question. Don't stray from the information that you need. Also, look for the one odd document out. There's always going to be one document that doesn't really fit into any of the buckets, but you just need to pick out the small information that makes sense. Some tips on thesis writing is to use a complex word such as despite, although, or while. Also, look at the buckets and make each one a clause in your thesis, which is the chicken toes. Make the sentence flow with good vocabulary and comprehensive verbs. This makes the writing seem more professional. And another type of prompt that you could be given would look like this one. Analyze the issues that 20th century Muslim leaders in South Asia and North Africa confronted in defining their nationalism. Things to notice about this are that there is a historical background given in this. This information can be used in your essay to further the knowledge that is given. Another thing to notice is that it says nationalism. This is what you're going to focus on in writing the essay. It also says Muslim leaders, so this is the point of view that you will be working from. It also says South Asia and North Africa, so any other information in the documents given about other areas should not be used. The focus should stay on those two areas. It also says issues, which means that you're going to look at the problems that they encountered in defining their nationalism, not just random facts about their nationalism. It also says analyze, so you're going to look in depth at each of these issues that are given in each of the documents. There are many ways that you can set up this type of essay. Since there are two areas given, there can be 2 paragraphs written about South Asia and 1 about North Africa, or 2 about North Africa and 1 about South Asia. I would make a chart like this above and use the information in the documents to group accordingly. Put the documents into buckets and have at least 1 paragraph about South Asia and or North Africa. You have to have both areas, so 1 paragraph at least should be dedicated to both. Also stick to the question. There is probably going to be many outside sources that are not necessary in writing the essay. Tips on thesis writing are the same for almost all of the documents or essays. You should use a complex word and make each bucket a clause in your thesis. Another prompt that you could be given is a simple one like this. Using the documents, analyze Han and Roman attitudes towards technology. This may be short, but there's a lot of information that should go into this. Things to notice is that it says Han and Roman. This means that you need to include information about Han's attitudes towards technology and the Roman attitudes. It says attitudes towards technology, so focus on the actual attitudes, not just the different types of technology around at that time. Focus on the question. It also says analyze, which means to go deeper in depth about each of their attitudes towards the new advancements. The best way to organize this one is almost exactly like the last one. Since it says Han and Roman, at least 1 paragraph should be dedicated to Han and at least 1 should be dedicated to Roman. 3 paragraphs is the best way to write your essay. Group into buckets about Han and Roman attitudes towards technology. So put each document into one of these categories and make sure it's individual attitudes, not just technology in general. This means you have to stay focused on the question. Pick out parts of each document that you can fit into a bucket. Not every document is going to fit exactly into a certain bucket, so pick out 2 to 5 words that fit into what you're trying to say. Tips on thesis writing are the same for this kind of essay as well. Use a complex word to start and make each bucket one of your 3 clauses. This will make for a thesis that is comprehensive and makes more sense in writing the rest of your essay.
The thesis statement is like the general overview of the whole essay. Basically, it's like the trailer to a movie. So it pretty much goes up to what the movie is. And for the thesis, you're going to tell what you are comparing and contrasting. A good thesis tends to be 2 to 3 sentences long, and in it you're going to tell what you're writing about, the groups you put them into, and you're basically going to tell the proctor what is in your essay so that they don't get bored and nod off to sleep. General paragraph. Your general paragraphs is going to include a subthesis, argument, evidence, and point of view. Now, your subthesis, every body paragraph you write, body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, and body paragraph 3 are all going to have a subthesis. Basically, this is like the thesis, only smaller, and only entails what you are writing about in that body paragraph. Your argument is basically the rest of the body paragraph, besides for the evidence. The argument is why are you saying these things? What are the claims you're making? And you're tying this all in with the evidence, and the evidence you're tying into the documents. Your documents are your evidence. They are your lifeline, and you need to get all of them right except for one to get a point. So use them and tie them into the prompt. Make sure you're answering the question the proctors are asking, not one that you just want them to answer. And also, you're going to need 2 points of view. And point of view is about the author who's writing this one. So is it a Frenchman talking about an Englishman talking about a French? And what are their values? And you can't just be like, well, they were a plantation owner, so they valued cotton and productivity. No, they valued making money off slaves, and they didn't care about how it happened. And they also valued their slaves not learning Enlightenment ideas so that they could not revolt against them. And basically, yeah. Introduction. You're going to insert your thesis statement into your introduction. And your thesis statement should be the first 1 to 3 sentences of your introduction. Also, if your thesis does not address the body paragraph, then make a new sentence that introduces each topic. You don't want to be rambling. You don't want to do all that work just to find out that your thesis screwed everything up and you don't get the points for that. And also go back to the historical context and decide if you can use any part of it. If you can't use any part of it, find a new one, find a new motive, and work with that. This is basically, I'm not going to lie, basically, this whole essay is bullcrapping it. Body paragraph 1. For any body paragraphs, always start them with a subthesis. The subthesis is what you're going to talk about in your paragraph. Basically, your subthesis is a roadmap. And evidence. Not all of the documents given to you will have a definitive stance, so you have to bend the meaning of the documents in the direction you want them to finally be grouped in. For grouping, you want 2 to 3 groups, probably 3 groups, and you want more than 2 documents, 2 or more documents in each group. So if one of your groups only has one, then you're going to have to take one of those documents, bend it in a way that will fit in your other grouping, and just wing it. Body paragraph 1 continued. Okay, argument. Always connect your evidence to your thesis. Persuade the reader that the thesis is relevant by proving it with your evidence. Make sure you focus on tying the documents into the prompt essay. That is going to be your biggest concern for the whole thing, because you want to tie in the documents to the prompt essay, or you're talking about nothing and the proctor is going to get bored and there's no point for you to even have written that essay. And sorry folks, it's either the proctor's way or the highway. You have to answer the questions in the way the prompt asks. So always, if you're writing something, always check and see, does this fit the prompt? Am I tying it in with the prompt or not? And if you're looking at those questions and the answer is yes, you're good.
This is a sample of a body paragraph 2. To read this, pause the video.